It all started when I drew this. At this time in my life, I was tabling a lot at local DIY shows for a few musicians that I knew and zine fests here and there. I was selling prints of this piece at one of those zine fests, and there was one comment that just kept coming up. This kind of looks like a tarot card. It was a comment that I got so much that I thought, why don't I make it a tarot card? In fact, why don't I make an entire tarot deck? I'm gonna be honest, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I looked into it and an entire tarot deck is comprised of 78 cards. That would mean 78 illustrations. I saw that number and I thought, okay, this first illustration took me about 2 days to make. If I work really hard, I could probably finish the entire deck in a couple months. I set out to make the first few cards, and in 3 weeks, I had 3 cards. Yeah. It became very apparent that this project was going to take a lot longer than a couple of months. I completely forgot to take into account that not only did I have 2 jobs at the time, I was also a full-time student in art school. There was no way I could finish this project in that short period of a time within the schedule I was juggling. But I was determined. I started it and I wanted to finish it. Any free time I had, I was working on this project. I decided to set a goal for 1 card a week, and I was hitting that goal. There were a few times here and there where I would miss a week, but for the most part, I was able to make it work. There was even a few times where I made 2 cards in a week, so it all kind of balanced out. Night after night, weekend after weekend, I would work on this project, and after more than a year and a half later, I was done. I finally did it. I was able to draw all 78 cards. But there was a problem. You see, at the beginning of this project, I decided to do some research to see how I would actually print these decks once the illustrations were completed. Eventually, I was able to find a company that printed tarot decks. So I wrote down the dimensions that they specified and then spent the next year and a half designing my cards to those specific dimensions. After designing all of those cards, I went back to that company's website only to find that it no longer existed. I scrambled to find a new company, and luckily I found one, but their dimensions were different. I thought, okay, no sweat. I'll design some borders that fit these new dimensions and then take the old designs and put them into these new borders. That kind of worked, but a lot of the original illustrations weren't designed for these new dimensions, so a lot of the cards ended up just looking kind of weird. On top of that, there was another huge issue. When you're drawing this consistently and everything you're making is under a certain style, you get better. Now, normally this is what you want. You want to improve as an artist, but when I looked at all of the cards together, there was a stark difference between the cards that I had made in the beginning and the cards that I had made at the end. The last few cards I made for the deck were drastically better, and I kind of hated the cards I made in the beginning. So, since the first half of the deck sucked, and all the cards needed to be redesigned for the new dimensions anyway, I decided to start redrawing the deck. I worked pretty diligently, but this go around, I ended up taking a lot more breaks. I graduated college, I moved a few times, and I also ended up getting a full-time job as a visual development artist. With all that going on, I still found time to work on the project. One by one, I was able to redesign and transform all the cards I hated into my new favorites. In total, it ended up taking me another year to completely redesign the cards. Oh, and you know I was checking the entire time to make sure that this new card company hadn't gone out of business as well. After having all the cards done, it was time for the next step. Most tarot decks come with a book. This book teaches you how to do basic readings and has the full meaning of every card in the deck. So, I had to make a book. I was worried though. If I had to make a physical book, it would bring up the overall price of the tarot decks pretty high, and I really wanted these decks to be affordable. So, I decided to make a digital book. I created a section on my website that is entirely dedicated to this tarot card project. In that section, there's an easy-to-use online book for the tarot deck, and you can access it through a QR code that I was planning on including with the cards. It took a couple weeks to build out the website and write out the meanings of each of the cards, but it was totally worth it. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with this idea. It brought down the overall cost of the project a lot, and I think it's kind of cool to have something like this on my website. After designing the website, I spent the next few days designing a box that would match the aesthetics of the cards. Originally, I was going to print the QR code onto a little pamphlet that would come with the tarot cards, but I thought that would be way too easy to lose, So I decided to print it directly onto the inside of the box. I'd never done any package design, so I thought this part was going to be really hard, but designing the box ended up actually being one of the easiest parts in this entire project. Now, with all that hard work done, and after almost 3 years of designing these cards, it was time for the last step. When that package arrived, I was so excited. I spent years working on this project, and I couldn't wait to see what that final result looked like. Wow. Years of hard work, 78 illustrations, and finally, here it was. Here it is. Check it out. Look at this. Has this little magnet thing. Yeah, I love that part. You open it up, there's the QR code, there's this little string that pops out the deck. I like to keep it with this little plastic thing on it. Kind of just holds the cards together. But here they are. Honestly, I wish I could just spend the next, I don't know, hour showing off all these cards, but I think you're just gonna have to go to my website and check them out. They're all so different, and they're wacky and weird, and some of my favorite illustrations I've ever made are in these cards. Here's another one. When I built this thing, I kind of just thought of it as like an art book almost. That was kind of the idea of it. And it's, you know, it's a functional art book. You look at it, you can look at the art, you can see how much work I put into it, how much effort went into these. And like some of them are just so badass. I worked so hard on these. Yeah, this is one of my favorites. So I actually finished this project maybe about 2 years ago, and it's still something that I'm really proud of. I think the cards are sick. I think the box looks amazing. And overall, I'm just really happy with how this project turned out. I still have a few of these for sale on my website. I think I have about 10 left. Hold on, let me check. 12. There's 12 left. I don't plan on ordering any more of these, so this might be the last of them. If you do want a tarot deck, I'll put a link to them in the description of this video. Thank you in advance to anyone who does order a deck. I really appreciate the support. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you liked the video. Subscribe if you're new, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.